Well, I'm joined now on set by France 24's senior reporter, James Andre, who's just back from Israel. James, you spent time, I know, with the hostage families while you were out there in Israel. What did they tell you? And I know you were talking earlier about this tension as well in Israeli politics between getting the hostages back and destroying Hamas.
Yes, absolutely. Well, yeah, we did spend time with them. What we did was we followed their march. Now, we didn't walk with them, but we did the start and the finish of this 5-day march between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. And in doing so, well, we spoke to, the hostage families who were telling us that, of course, well, they were devastated because obviously it's terrible when for nearly 6 weeks, your loved ones are held hostage in the Gaza Strip in this specific case. But yes, indeed, we saw that what they wanted at that stage was for the focus to be on releasing these hostages. And it was actually quite interesting because the last evening we spent in Tel Aviv with my colleague Julie Dungelhoff was covering these negotiations when it came to the cabinet ministers meeting in order to decide if they were going to go with this deal or not. And you realize how much tension there is in the Israeli society between those who were absolutely adamant that the main goal was to release the hostages and another part of the Israeli society, namely let's say the hard right part, and some of the politicians, including the Jewish power, for example, voted against the deal. So there was this threefold protest, basically, with one group, which was the main group, saying we want our hostages back and we want the deal to be negotiated and agreed to. And then you had another group protesting against this deal, saying that the military objectives had not been achieved and that the superior interest of Israel was to defend against Hamas and destroy it. And then there was a third group, and this is also important, which is the families of young men who are being held in the Gaza Strip and who say, well, yeah, women and children are coming out, but how about my son, who's 22? This is what people are saying. So, they feel they're kind of being abandoned in this. And of course, Hamas has said they would not release any soldiers. And as you know, military conscription is mandatory for men and women, actually, in Israel. And so, obviously, a lot of people are not even on the lists to be released. But of course, yesterday, 13 prisoners will be released, and that's going to be great news for those 13 families. A lot of other families are going to be waiting. And then I'd just say one last thing is obviously there is a lot of expectation because some of these hostages, we don't know if they're still alive or not, or if they were killed on the 7th of October. And I can tell you, we interviewed, for example, the brother of a young woman called Shani Gabay. He was very hopeful at that stage that his sister would be released quite early because she's a young woman. And, well, his expectations were sadly crushed because on Saturday they actually found her remains in one of the kibbutz that was attacked by Hamas, because some of the bodies, their remains are so damaged by fire, for example, that it takes a very long time, and forensic experts working on it to try and determine who these remains belong to. And sometimes, well, some of these hostages are, we say 236, but, well, there's hostages and missing people in there.
Yeah, it's all very unclear. As part of this deal today as well, what will impact some Palestinian families is the release of some Palestinian prisoners from Israel. What do we know about who they are and why they were in prison?
Now, we don't have specifics, but what we know is that what's been said by Benjamin Netanyahu is that people with, and I quote, blood on their hands would not be released. So what we are talking now, they are referred to in the Israeli press, for example, as terror convicts. So it's women and children for now. So 39 of them, for example, are going to be released today.
When you say children, what ages are we talking about?
Well, the youngest one, according to Amnesty International, is 14 years old.
Right.
So it's between 14 and 18.
Right.
You got to understand that in Israel you have mechanisms such as administrative detention, which means basically that the Israelis can detain someone without charging them and without them having a trial. And they can basically arrest someone, hold them for up to 6 months, and these 6 months are renewable for an infinite length. And so what was described to us by Palestinians, because we went to Ramallah and spoke to them, is that some people will be kept there for a very long time and then released a few days and then taken again because the Israelis suspect them of, terror plotting something or whatever. So probably there'll be some of these people. And then you got to realize that a lot of people have been arrested in the West Bank since the beginning of the war. NGOs say over 2,000, some say up to 2,800. And so these are people who have been arrested, detained, and who are in Israeli jails. So, we don't have the exact profile of the people who will be released, but indeed, yes, of course, for these families, it's important. So it's going to be 1 for 3. It's been 1 Israeli hostage for 3 Palestinian prisoners. And, the first exchange is going to be at 4 p.m. And these Palestinian prisoners who are on this list are being moved to one of the prisons where they will be released into the West Bank and Jerusalem.
You've covered lots of stories for France 24. What do you think now, having just come back? What did you take away from this mission to Israel? And I think you were very briefly in the Gaza Strip as well. What struck you most? What were your lasting impressions?
Well, I think what we have now in the Israeli society, and I'll start with the Israeli society, is deep resentment and deep distrust and fear. As in, you'll walk around Tel Aviv going out for dinner, and you will see people in restaurants with assault rifles. You will hear some pretty strong rhetoric against the Palestinians, and you have this feeling that it's going to be very difficult for them to live side by side. You can tell that people say, there's been a before and an after, and things will not be the same afterwards. There's also a lot of resentment against the government because they feel that they've failed them, and a lot of people are, Benjamin Netanyahu is very criticized. And then on the Palestinian side, there's a feeling that, they feel abandoned and they feel left to their own devices. The pressure on the Palestinians in the West Bank, because we spent time in Ramallah and we spent time in Hebron, is huge by the Israelis. We witnessed a few scenes as we were there. For example, we saw 2 young men being arrested by Israeli soldiers. We asked someone if these young people were known. This was in the Hebron Old City, and they said, well, no, they're just 2 kids from around here. We know them very well. But anyway, the Israelis just randomly arrest, Israeli soldiers in Hebron Old Market will just arrest young people, young men.
That's what you were told.
Check
on the West
their
Bank.
phones. That's what we were told. And we just saw them being attached to a pole and later released. And it was they were actually at the hairdressers because they were invited to their sister's wedding, which they probably missed because they were being held by Israeli soldiers. And then we will have seen another scene where we were at the Hizma checkpoint, basically waiting to go through. And the car in front, for some reason, they checked the boot of the car, opened the lid, and then something happened, and there were 4 Israeli soldiers with assault rifles at the window, aiming at this driver, plus 2 behind. I mean, you can feel that there is extreme tension. You can feel that there is fear on both sides. And there is, on Israeli side, they feel that the world does not understand their plight and what's happened to them. And they feel that they're being unfairly judged. And then on the Palestinian side, well, they feel that they're being abandoned and that, the world is looking the other way and not helping them. So that is the situation right now. So it's not an easy situation in the country, for sure.